What's up guys, it's Izzy here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we're profiling the last of the three archetypes that we got in Genesis Impact. We covered Magistus, we covered Evil Twins, and now we're doing the new Ritual Support archetype, that's Drytron. This deck is actually a much better version of Incantations. I'm pretty sure that these have power crypt Incantations completely, because they just do the same thing that Incantations do, but they just do it much better, more consistently, and they give you some resource gain because they actually can be used on the graveyard for follow-up, so they just do everything better. So you can include this in pretty much any ritual deck and make it work. I think that most of the popular versions are going to be with Necros, with Megalith, and stuff like that. But for this video, I decided to include them in Cyber Angels, because I think this deck hasn't seen much love recently, so it's really cool to see how a deck like this can actually get boosted by Drytron, because Drytron is such a powerful engine. And they have an inherently ritual synergy with Benten, so I think even if you're not playing pure Cyber Angels with the Drytrons, I think you should still be playing Benten. So in this deck it's much better because you have to be playing Benten anyway. So without further ado guys, let's get to the deck profile. If you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck list. So for the Drytron little monsters, we have 3 copies of Drytron Alpha. So the Drytron monsters, when they're in your hand or your graveyard, you can tribute one other Drytron monster from your hand or field, or one ritual monster from your hand or field, and special summon them. And special summoned, when their own effect, they do something. So this one searches a ritual monster from your deck. And when you use these effects, you cannot actually special summon a monster that can be normal summoned or set. You can still normal summon those, so that's very crucial. And these monsters are so good because they can activate from their effects from the grave. So even if you don't have anything, even if your opponent breaks your board, with just one card, you can still end on an entire board again. So this is why this deck is really good, because it seems like you're going through a lot of resources during your first turn, but in reality, you do already have your follow-up in your grave set up, so it doesn't really matter that you've used so many cards in order to bring a board out. So this is why these cards are much better than the Incantations, because they do not require you to actually reveal a monster. They tribute it, which may sound bad at first, but when combined with stuff like Benten, it's not bad at all because she wants to be tributed, but they can be accessed from the grave, so this is why they're really great. We have 3 copies of Drytron Zeta. Zeta is the one that searches ritual spells. I think these 2 are the only ones that you need to max out in this deck. There are other ones, but their effects are kind of mediocre. I do play only one after these 2, but these 2 are just the ones you want to be going through. Even if you use like the first one to tribute Benten and then get another ritual monster, and then you can use the other one to get a ritual spell, the ritual spell of this particular deck can ritual summon any monster in the game, so basically no matter what you're playing, you can make this work. You can even play stuff like Armor Factor Pain, which is a card that people have started playing, although I do not think it's that great because it doesn't lock link monsters, it only negates fusions, exceeds, and synchros, which yes, it can be relevant against stuff like Dragon Link, but links are the ones that are going to get rid of it, cards like Cerberus and Unicorn, so I don't think it's that worth playing. So yep, these 2 are the bread and butter of the deck. I play 1 copy of Delta. Delta, when it's summoned, you can reveal a ritual monster or ritual spell to draw a card. That's a decent effect, but it's not something that you really want to be using a lot. The only reason I play it is so I can have one more different name to search, because I play a lot of ways to search them in the deck. So even if I already have Alpha and Zeta, so I have one more target to maybe get on the field, dig for a card, and use for link material. For the normal summons of the deck, I play 3 Cyber Dragon Core. This card is very good in the deck because it does 2 things. First of all, the obvious one, it searches Cyber Emergency, and Cyber Emergency searches all of your Drytrons because they are all machines that cannot be normal summon or set, so that's already good enough. But since it's a Cyber Dragon, it can go into Mega Fleet, so not only does this card give you a search, but it also allows you to get rid of your opponent's monster. So if your opponent has an Appaloosa on the field, yes, they will negate its effect to search Cyber Emergency, but then you can just get rid of Appaloosa completely. So this is why this card is much better, because if you play stuff like Guild Dogra instead, and you try to use its effect, going second, that's not very optimal. Yes, going first gives you more searches than this, but Cyber Dragon Core, not only does it help you get rid of your opponent's extra deck monster zone, but it also gives you the follow-up, because you can banish it from the grave to special summon another one from the deck. Although keep in mind, if you use this effect, you will not be able to use the Drytron's effect, because you will have actually special summoned a monster that can't be normal summoner set. So if you use Core's Graveyard effect, you will not be able to use the Drytrons. 1 copy of Manju, just 1 because it's searchable with Benten. That's the only reason it's here. If you don't already have one of your cores, then you can search your Manju to get another body on the field to give you a search. And these are both lights, so they give you access to Hoseningen. And I really like keep Hoseningen in the deck because I have a certain turn 1 board that I want to end on, and this board doesn't let me end on stuff like Masquerena because it locks the entire extra deck, even mine. But Hoseningen, if it goes to the grave, then I will be able to get back one of my monsters. I don't really want to get back one of my Drytrons, because they can activate their effects on the grave, but I can search back my Monju, I can get back my Cyber Dragon Core, and any ritual monster, so it's really good. The only hand trap in the deck is one Effect Veiler, just because Wear of Though. Wear of Though is a card that I think should be played in the deck. The Drytrons, you need to get access to both Zeta and Alpha in order to be able to do your full stuff, so that's why I play a lot of ways to search them, but if I already have access to both of them, and I have a Wear of Though, I don't want to search another dead copy, so having one Effect Veiler in the deck makes you have more disruption available for when the times you need. For the ritual monsters, we play the one Dragon Drytron Meteornis Quadraton. This card is the only one of the two I play. The other one, yes, it's the disruption that can send a monster to the grave, but just this is not enough for disruption, so if you want to end on that, you're not going to have a fun time against combo especially. So this one is basically Harpy's Feather Duster, and I play it because it can come up, and I do not summon it too often, but if I play against something like Altergeist or Subterror, this card's fine. It's just another option I can access to. For the Cyber Angel part, play of course 3 Benten. It's the only one you need to max out because she's the one you want to be tributing to get her effect and get the Drytrons on the field to get another search. Really good. 1 copy of Natasha. Natasha is actually insane because you can crack boards very easily with this card by stealing them away. So what she does is that she has a field effect that's not very relevant. You can actually target a monster you control, gain life points equal to half its attack, and you can negate once per turn an attack towards a ritual monster. But the grave effect is the good part, because if she's in the grave, you banish one other Cyber Angel monster from your grave, target a monster your opponent controls, you special summon this card, and then you take control of that target. In order to use that, you have of course to properly ritual summon her first, but that's very easy. And then once you do that, this effect is not once per turn. So once you take one of your opponent's monsters, you can link both of these away and then get a monster on the field and then use Natasha's effect again. So as long as you keep link climbing and you have Cyber Angels in the grave, which is very easy to fill your grave with Bentens, you can actually steal your opponent's whole board and do a boardless sort play and OTK them just thus easily. So this card, I think it's the most important Cyber Angel aside from Benten because she's the one you want to be summoning a lot. For the level 8s, play 1 copy of Izana. Izana is the one that sends an opponent's backer to the grave, and when she's targeted, you can shuffle 1 ritual monster from your grave into the deck to destroy a card your opponent controls. Unfortunately, it does not negate that targeting. I wish it did that, but at least she retaliates when she's targeted by a card effect. 1 copy of Dakini. This is the inherent Auto Dragoon if it has a boost, because if it goes up to 5,000 attack or something, you will not be able to deal with it. But with Dakini, you just get rid of your opponents the rest of the board, and then you summon Dakini, and she forces your opponent to send one of their monsters to the grave. So this is an Auto Dragoon very easily. And during the end phase, you can target a ritual monster in the grave and add to your hand, so you get back your Bentens for follow-up. And 1 copy of Vrash. Vrash is the one that you summon when your opponent has a lot of extra deck monsters on the field. If you side stuff like Dark Ruler no more, this card is really good because your opponent will not be able to protect their monsters, and you can just blow up their entire field with this card. And the last ritual monster is 1 Necros of Unicorn. This is the turn 1 play I was talking about because Armor Factor Pain, it does have more attack, it stops your opponent's battle phase, but it doesn't stop link monsters, and that's basically enough of a reason for me to not run this card, because I know that my opponent is going to activate a Cerberus effect or a Phoenix effect or a Unicorn effect to just get rid of my Armor Factor Pain. Unicorn, however, stops my opponent's extra deck completely, but it stops my extra deck too, so this is why I said Hifo Sheningen is a really good card in the deck, because it's very easy to summon and it's much better than summoning a Masquerena that's completely dead because I have a Unicorn on the field. So this is why I think for a turn 1 play, that's good enough. For the spells, we play 3 copies of Drytron Nova. This special summons a Drytron monster from the deck, destroys it during the end phase. This card does not trigger Drytrons, unfortunately, but you can link them away, and then you can use their effects from the grave, so yep, that's pretty much the same, and you also get a link 1 on the field. 3 copies of Drytron Fafnir. This is the field spell of the deck. When it's activated, you can add a Drytron spell and trap from your deck to your hand, and I'm so glad that it says trap as well, because the deck does have a counter trap that you can actually play 1 copy of in the deck to have even more disruption, and also protects your ritual spell cards from being negated, so it has like kind of a meltdown effect, and it has a nice effect that can actually come up against certain matchups. So once per turn, if a monster is normal special summon face up while you control a Drytron monster, you can reduce that monster's level by 1 per 1,000 attack. So when your opponent plays stuff like Burning Abyss, if they summon a Tour Guide and they summon a Graph from the deck, Graph has 1,000 attack. So if you control a Drytron monster, you can have Graph lose 1 level, and what that does is it prevents that from summoning Cherubini and Dante, because the Graph is level 2 now. So against certain matchups that do need certain levels to do something, this effect can actually come up quite a lot. I know a lot of people have overlooked this effect, but try to remember it because I guarantee you that it's going to come up in some matchups. 2 copies of Meteonis Drytron, the ritual spell. This one summons from your hand or your grave, and it's a new method of ritual summoning. Instead of counting levels, this counts attack, and since all the Drytron little monsters have 2,000 attack each, it's very easy to summon pretty much any monster in the deck, because the biggest monster is the Drytron Meteonis Quadratin, and this has 4,000, but if you want to summon Vrash, you can actually pay to 3,000, so you don't really need to tribute 2 Drytron monsters. And yep, this card, if it's in your graveyard, you can try to Drytron monster you control, it decreases attack by by 1000 points, and you add this back to your hand. This is effect once per turn, but the ritual effect to ritual summon is not once per turn, so you can ritual summon twice, or if your opponent negates this because you don't have Fafnir on the field, then you can get it back and try to ritual summon again. So this is also a very resilient card against interruption. Speaking of another resilient card, 3 copies of Cyber Emergency. This is the searcher of the deck, because like I said, the Drytrons are all machines that cannot be normal summoned or set, so you can search all of them. And of course, if this card's activation is negated, you can discard a card to add it to your hand. So unless your opponent Ash Blossoms this, which is what they should do, and they negate the activation effect on it, you can just activate it again, so they pretty much waste an effect while you're still getting your search. 3 copies of Werewolf though, getting access to all of your Drytrons, or if you already have access to them, you can search this 1 copy of Effect Veiler to get even more interruption. 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. Usually you will be searching Benton with this, but if you already have her, you can search your Unicorn, you can search your Natasha, pretty much anything you want that's level 7 or lower. 1 Terraforming to have more access to Drytron Fafnir, because this card is really important. And 1 copy of the Counter Trap Drytron Meteor Shower. This is a solemn warning, so when your opponent normal special summons a monster while you control a ritual monster, it doesn't have to be a Drytron monster, so even if you have a Unicorn on the field, you can just activate this, so it negates the summon, and it shuffles it back into the deck, which is actually really good, instead of a solemn warning that was sent to the grave. So this card is a searchable interruption that the deck has access to, so combining this with Effect Veiler and with Unicorn, you have really good going first setup, and with Cyber Dragon Core and all the monsters that deal with monsters already on the field, you have really good going second setup as well. For the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Mega Fleet. Mega Fleet is very important because of Cyber Dragon Core, and this is why Cyber Dragon Core is really good, much better than a normal summon compared to maybe a Gale Dogra or more copies of Manju, because it gives you more access to being able to disrupt your opponent and get rid of their extra deck monsters, so you can do your plays more freely, especially against cards like Appaloosa. For the link ones, point line 1 Linkuriboh and 1 Relinquished Anima. These are here because mostly of Drytron Nova. You don't want to keep that monster on the field when you summon it with Drytron Nova, because you cannot use its effect. It has to be special summoned by its own effect, so you have to link it away. And Linkuriboh is the one you will be summoning when Anima is not actually live, but if your opponent does have a monster under one of the extra monster zones, then you can use Anima to not only have access to your Drytron's effect from the grave, but to also get rid of one of your opponent's monsters. 1 Hipkosinningen, like I said, this card is insane because of Unicorn. It doesn't give you the attack boost, but you don't really care, you just want it to be a floater when it dies, and if it doesn't, you just have an extra body on the field to go for a link 4 during the following turn. And it's very easy to spam on this deck because you have 3 monsters that are constantly coming back from the graveyard, and you just need 1 more, which will be usually the normal summon you will be searching with Benten, will be Manju, and then you can go for Boral Sword, and then you can ritual summon 1 more monster, and that's basically OTK right there. 1 copy of Masquerena for those times that you cannot really get access to Unicorn. We have the Nightmares, 1 Cerberus, 1 Phoenix, 1 Unicorn, pretty standard. 1 Ningirsu. I am including this because it's very easy to summon with stuff like Linkuriboh, and it's another Auto Dragoon, which I desperately need in this particular deck, because a Dragoon that has boosted twice, unless I can get rid of my opponent's rest board and I can get access to Daikini, it's very easy to pretty much lose to just this card, so Ningirsu is here to make sure I don't lose to that. And for Link 4s, we have 1 Appaloosa. This can actually come up, because like I said, the deck spams a lot. You can get 3 monsters very easily, so if you cannot get access to Unicorn and you have something like a Natasha, you can actually ritual summon her with 3 Drytrons or 2 Drytrons and a normal summon, go for an Appaloosa, and for the next turn, if you don't get OTK'd, which you will probably not, because you have 4 Appaloosa interruptions, you have 2 or 3 Drytrons in the graveyard, and you have also the access to your ritual spell and other stuff, so this is why I think there are certain situations where you can manipulate your board accordingly to your hand, because you will not always be able to summon Unicorn third 1, especially if you get interrupted. This deck does lose to Droll, but Droll, since Dino has kind of taken a back step in the meta, doesn't really see that much play, which is a fortunate thing for this deck, so this is why I'm including a lot of stuff that can come up potentially, but you don't summon her too often. The board you will be ending on most of the time is like Unicorn with Max and Effect Veiler and Meteor Shower, which is the best turn 1 play. 1 Boral Sword, very easy to summon. All those Link 4s are very easy to summon because of Natasha. You just steal your opponent's board, keep Link climbing, keep bringing Natasha back and stealing more monsters, then you end on a Link 4 just like that. 1 Borload, another Out Dragoon. 1 Avramax. Whenever I include Masquerade in one of my extra decks, I try to include 1 Avramax, especially if the extra deck is not that tight, because some decks cannot deal with Avramax Masquerade, just auto lose to that. And 1 Zeroboros, it's another Out Dragoon, but this card is good if you can actually use its effect on a full board. If your opponent has used all their stuff to interrupt you, and you can just summon this. There's not really a way to summon this to use its effect during your opponent's turn, unfortunately, but alas, it's still a really good card. And because there's a lot of free space in the deck, if you're gonna play any topologic monsters, Zeroboros is the one you should be playing. So yep, that's the deck, guys. It's really fun, it's really good. You can try this, like I said, with pretty much any ritual archetype you want. You can play this even with stuff like Chaos Max if you want to. Megalith is going to to be a really good contender, I think, again, because once Block Dragon got banned, it didn't see any play after that, but now I'm pretty sure it's going to see play again. And Cyber Angels, I don't think this is the most competitive version of the deck, but it's the most fun version for me because I love Cyber Angels. If you want to include this pretty much anything, if you want us to make a deck profile of any other version of the deck, comment down below which version would you like to see. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.